Annie, whatever you think I'm not doing, please don't do it. Annie, for God's
Shh, darling. Trust me.
God's sake.
It's for the best.
Annie, please.
Almost done. Just one more. God, I love you.
Well, this is exactly what happens when you pander to a certain group of people. That's why there's a saying that the left eats itself or something along these lines. It's really sad because I think the left is used as obviously in a derogatory manner, but really they mean the far left, who are just as crazy as the far right, except they seem like they have superior numbers if you only look at a place like Twitter. The reality is, in the real world, they are a minuscule group of people like a chihuahua barking at an elephant. It's just irrelevancy if you understand context, if you leave the bubble that is Twitter. But Stephen King has long been very public about his suffering of TDS. He, while has written some good works, I think it's safe to say that most of his best work is far behind him. Books like It, stories like It or Pet Cemetery, they just don't, you just don't outdo those. I mean, he tries with sequels and he just puts out books like Verbal Diarrhea like he does on Twitter, but most of them are just suboptimal these days. If you're into Stephen King, maybe I'm just not into the right books. I admit most of my interaction with Stephen King these days are film adaptations, with which I know the films are never as good as the books, but I have 2 hours sometimes, not 2 weeks, to read a book, or 2 months for as long as it takes me. But nonetheless, the man has made some pretty crazy claims if you just follow him on social media. But today he dared savagely to suggest that award ceremonies should ignore skin color and should award the quality of the work. Shocking, right? That did not go over well. It's funny because Stephen King is concerned about getting awards as a white male. Just think about that. He knows the score. He knows that anytime a white male wins an award, whether they deserve it or not, I don't know. It depends on a case-by-case basis. There's going to be that specter around it, like, ugh, Oscar's so white, or ugh, another white author. Even if they deserve it, social media is insane. Now, this kind of stuff wouldn't bother me because I know Twitter is not reality. Twitter is a small subsect of actual people who don't, really represent people you'd meet on the street or in your local pub. So if people were screeching on Twitter about me winning an award and being white and male, I wouldn't care. The difference between me and Stephen King, other than an illustrious writing career, is that Stephen King needs these people. He panders to these people. He is, and always has been, one of the loudest TDS people, anti-Trumpers out there. So when he steps out and accidentally sticks his foot in his mouth, it gets pretty great. So he writes, as a writer, I'm allowed to nominate in just 3 categories: Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Original Screenplay. For me, the diversity issue, as it applies to the individual actors and directors anyway, did not come up. That said, I would never consider diversity in matters of art, only quality. It seems to me that to do otherwise would be wrong. Red alert! Stephen King has uttered the meritocracy word, the sheer insanity, the sheer unmitigated gall of him to suggest that the best person should win the award did not get received well by Twitter. He then has to work to backtrack it. The most important thing we could do as artists and creative people is make sure everyone has the same fair shot, regardless of orientation, color, whatever. Right now, such people are badly underrepresented, and not only in arts. You can't win awards if you're shut out of the game. Now, this is of course backtracking significantly, as his original tweet went bananas. With all due respect, I'm afraid that meritocracy could only work if the game wasn't rigged. White men are 35% of the population. It's not logical they produce 100% of quality art. Statistics, there's that, what's the saying? There's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics. This is one of those perfect examples. I like that people are disagreeing somewhat respectfully, but also getting savaged if you look at more of the other pieces. Like, notice how quality is framed as an innately the opposite of diversity, parentheses, whiteness. Diversity is not a deficiency and not charity. Stephen King is a perfect example of why these award shows are so white. You can have not interested in canceling Stephen King or J.K. Rowling. That's a good take. We regret to inform you Stephen King is yet another privileged, cis-het white man supporting racism and misogyny. Yeah. Stephen King savaged by woke mob for saying art should not be judged on quality and not diversity. This on Summit News by PJW. Author Stephen King is facing potential cancellation from the woke mob after a response to Oscar nominations by saying art should be judged on quality, not diversity of its creators. King was responding to controversy surrounding the Oscars nominations being too white and too male. Again, there is no such thing. If all of the nominees were black, people would be celebrating that. If they're all white, people say there's inherently a problem with that and that there's racism and all sorts of things like that. Think about that. If you would celebrate it being all black or all women, then you're part of the problem. Vogue reported that choices were pretty poor showing for, anyone other than straight white men, complaining that no females were nominated for Best Director and 0 performers of color were nominated for Best Supporting Actor and Best Supporting Actress categories. King responded on Twitter by daring to suggest that potential winners should be judged on their merits and not their genitals or skin color. As a writer, I'm allowed to nominate 3 categories. We read that tweet. For daring to suggest that movies should be judged solely on whether they are good or not, King faced immediate backlash from the woke Twitter users. When films created by people of color, irrespective of quality, constantly get overlooked for institutions that are predominantly comprised of white men, there is an implicit bias at work here, responded Morgan Jenkins. Exactly how do you know that? So let's say that you know that the people that vote for the Oscars are predominantly white and male. Maybe that's a fact. I don't know that it isn't, so let's presume it is. How do you know that the voters are racist? You're just saying they are? You have no evidence of that. Simply because they didn't vote for a worse movie or a worse actor on their skin color, that means they have a problem with race? Anytime you get in an argument with some of these people, here's what you do. And I know this bothers people, but you talk slow and you make them continue their own argument. When somebody says, yeah, did you hear Stephen King said, that the Oscars being so white wasn't a problem? You say, oh, that's interesting. Why are people saying it's a problem? Oh, well, because it is. What is that old? I think I took this management class at one time. I forget whose actual. It was like the rule of 3. You ask somebody the same question 3 times to kind of root down to their actual answer. And then by the time you root down to it, you say, well, why is it a problem that they're all white? Oh, okay, well, how do they know that these people, is there some sort of thing online indicating that the voters have a problem with race? By the end of it, they will have to say out loud that they're insane and they have no evidence of it. And there is, in fact, no problem with all the winners being white. I mean, inherently, if you don't prove that there is some personal beliefs leading the voting, then you don't know that there's any problem at all. Sir, respectively saying, you as a white man can't really say that. That's racist. That statement in and of itself is racist. You have more advantages and opportunities than a person of color would have. No, you don't. They have been wrongfully held back in just so many ways because of the color of their skin. No evidence required. And by the way, Hollywood, which touts its diversity and whines and has these hissy fits every time there isn't enough of a quota of men or women, or I'm sorry, women or people of color or whatever. You expect me to believe that these people are holding people of color back? I mean, I think if you believe that, then you're just as likely to believe that they're artificially propping up people of color to get their woke points. The backlash from the woke mob is particularly funny given that King panders to them 99% of his time with his endless anti-Trump diatribes, but 99% is not enough. Unless you show snowflakes devotion to the cult, flawless devotion to the cult, you will be canceled. Daily Wire. Stephen King says art should be judged on quality, not diversity, gets torched by leftists online. And again, I won't say leftists, I will say far left. I know a lot of people that would consider themselves leftists watch my videos, and I don't think that this describes all of them. I think if you watch my videos, you already know how I feel about cancel culture, and you probably agree with me. Author and reliable progressive critic of President Donald Trump, Stephen King has made waves in the leftist online outrage mob when he suggested that the Oscars honored both, quote, quality, and Oscar voters didn't need to be concerned about diversity. The Oscar nominations released on Monday made their own waves, and among leftists who complained that no women were nominated for Best Director, King revealed on Twitter that he is an Oscar voter, having penned several adaptations for his own novels for the silver screen, feeling a need to explain that the process behind the Academy Awards voting process. King said that the, quote, diversity issue did not come up, and that he, like others, made their choices based on quality. Isn't that funny? How people have such a problem with this. I don't understand. This is definitely a baby's mindset, like a toddler would react this way. You would say, me as a voter, look, I'm a Hall of Fame. Let's say I ever was a Hall of Fame voter for NFL or MLB, which would never happen because I don't cover sports. But let's say hypothetically, I'm voting on the best athlete for the job. That's what most people do, except in Pete Rose's case. Let Pete Rose in. What? Come on, guys. Anyway, and look, that's how I feel. Pete Rose should be in the Hall. And the fact that he gambled is not a reason to continue to hold him out. And most voters would probably vote him in, and those that don't vote for him specifically based on that are jerks. Same with the Oscars. I highly doubt any Hollywood elites are not voting for black folks solely based on the color of their skin. But maybe like the 2016 election, maybe when the doors closed, these people that are so openly woke, whining about underrepresentation, when the doors are closed and they have the privacy of their own homes, they're actually voting for the good films. Look at what happened to Joker. Everybody, if you believed all the woke outrage online, you'd think that Joker wasn't going to get a single nomination, and they got 11. They're likely to tie Titanic and Ben-Hur. So maybe, just maybe, in the shadows, these people actually believe in meritocracy and not insane Twitter ramblings. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.